ignited.
India has one of the world's largest space industries. But what does the future hold? I spoke to the chairman of InSpace, who's helping to shape that vision. So, Mr. Chairman, welcome to the show.
Most welcome, my pleasure.
I'm very interested in India's space industry. It's now becoming very prominent globally. How important do you think the space industry is to India?
So see, Indian space industry is very old and very new. We started in space 60 years ago, right, with Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, and we have done a lot of programs, as is well known. Chandrayaan-3 was the latest one. But it's always been the ISRO, or the government agency, that has done everything, up until recently, when the private sector came in. So that's the new part of it. So in that sense, we are very new, almost like a startup. Till 3-4 years ago, there were hardly any space companies in India. Now there are 250 space startups just in 3 years. And overall contribution to economy from space also was very low, just about $8.8 billion as of now, which we now plan to take it to $44 billion in 10 years. Right? So in that sense, the space industry is very important on 3 fronts. Number one, technology, and what technology does for us, not just in terms of actual tangible outcome, but also how it positions India in the overall global space industry. Right? Number two, what it does to economy and commercial contribution, where $44 billion is meaningful. 8 billion may not be so meaningful, 44 will be meaningful. And number three, what it translates to in terms of impacting day-to-day life of a common person, right? In terms of various applications that we do, communication, navigation, all of these things. And that will also take a much steeper growth curve over the next 8 to 10 years. And therefore, from all these viewpoints, it's very important for India, and driven from the top. The Honorable Prime Minister himself is sort of reviewing what's happening in space in all of these arenas.
Your agency, InSpace, if you like, it is a bridge between the government side of space and the private sector companies. How would you describe your agency?
I wouldn't say bridge between the two. I would say that InSpace has a very unique role. We are a regulator of space on one hand.
Yes.
That means all space activities, including what ISRO does, has to be authorized by or licensed by InSpace.
Yes.
The second role is promoter. So the promoter, our role is to facilitate how the private sector play a meaningful role in the space sector, right? So in terms of where they get technology from, how do they get funding, how do we get access to infrastructure, where do we get the business from? So try and create all these sort of opportunities for the private sector.
Quite a few Australian startups are now coming to Bengalaru. Do you see an important future between Australia and India?
Let me put it this way, that we have been talking with several countries about how to get a better engagement with the private sector. And we perhaps are farthest ahead with Australia. Okay? We started that at BSX 2 years ago. Okay? And the head of Australian Space Agency has taken personal interest in how to work with the Indian companies. So InSpace and the Australian agency play sort of, we work together. We have had at least 3 physical meetings with the Indian companies and Australian companies together to do some matchmaking. We have probably a dozen or so engagements that have already happened between the private sector companies. We have some programs that have been announced by Australian agency where Australian company and Indian company are working together. So quite a bit of advancement has happened in our relationship with Australia when it comes to private sector to private sector.
So when you think about at the end of your term, what would you like to see achieved in the Indian space industry?
Well, see, the mandate that we have is to have a very well-defined regulatory environment which does not become onerous, but at the same time ensures that we have reasonable control in what happens or does not happen, right? Because space is a very sensitive field. There are security, safety, international obligations, all of those we need to take care of. So one thing is that we should have a well-oiled machine of regulator. Okay? But where the value will come is how we'll be able to do as a promoter. Okay? So there, when I step down, I would like to see a clear path to the $44 billion. Okay? I don't think I'll be around for the $44 billion, but I would like to see a clear path to $44 billion.
So that's a great aspiration, the $44 billion impact on the economy. What needs to be done?
That's a difficult question to answer. Right? It's very easy to talk about $44 billion, but to deliver it is 8 to 44 is 5x. Right? And to get there is possible, but it's not something that will just happen. One has to work very hard at it, and one meaning not one, but many. Government of India, private sector, the academia, investors, users, all have to collaborate to make it happen.
When your car breaks down, you call roadside assistance. So what do you do if your satellite breaks down? You call Space Machines Company, of course. I spoke to its founder at the UTS Tech Lab here in Sydney. Now, tell me, what do Space Machines do?
Well, let's go back a little bit. Satellites are becoming an inherent part of our society. We depend on lots of things. We don't even realize it, apps, ATMs. And as they become more and more part of our society, their operation becomes pretty critical to what we do and how things work on the ground. And increasingly, there are more and more satellites going up. And so I think a big part of that is how do we protect and make them sustainable. And so security and sustainability play a really important part in making sure this infrastructure, this critical infrastructure stays as is. And so our business is all about making sure that we can, in space, get close to these satellites, understand what's happening with them, protect them, service them, repair them. And so really understand a little bit more data about what's happening in space.
So you're sort of monitor, repair and maintenance for satellites?
Monitor, inspect, protect, those kind of use cases.
It's almost like roadside assistance for satellites.
Roadside assistance, exactly. Very quickly get there, understand, rapidly get there, understand what's going on, and then work out what the next actions are going to be.
Now, you're from Delhi originally, but Bengalaru is the aerospace capital pretty much of India?
Absolutely. I think it's a hub of all aerospace activity. ISRO is based out of there. A lot of their satellite tracking centers are in Bangalore. So it provides us a hub of skills development, capability, supply chain for space.
When I first went to Bangalore some years ago, I had a bit of defence, had a very small airport, but they had a little company called Infosys, which was doing some pretty interesting things. Now it's quite a massive city, isn't it, in terms of infrastructure and industry?
Absolutely. It's become a hub for technology, software, hardware, defense space. For the last 20 years, it's gone a massive transformation. And it's become a place where people are coming from different parts of the country to train on deep tech, AI, digital transformation and others.
So I wanted to ask you, why India and why Bengaluru? Is it probably because India is investing so much in space?
It is. Look, India's got a heritage of low-cost manufacturing. It's got deep space heritage. It's emerging as a massive pool of capability and talent. And so when we think about all of the ingredients of a great commercial and technical collaboration, it makes for a perfect destination.
I was also going to ask you, in a sense, why Australia, in a sense, how is Australia regarded in Bangalore in terms of space capability? Are we well known, or is it a new thing for Indians?
Look, I think it's emerging. I think the relationship between Australia and India starts from cricket. I think there's a deep love and appreciation of the country. And so I think that works in our favor. I think space is new. Only the last 5 years or 6 years, we've really reignited Australia's journey back into space. And so I think, we're held in high regard in India and an emerging space economy. And so, very keen to work with Australians, very keen to work with Australian companies and Australian people in general. And that's all sort of underpinned by that love for sport.
Now, I wasn't allowed to raise cricket, but seeing you've mentioned it, I will now. I used to work a lot with Steve Waugh when I worked at Australia, and I understand he's a brand ambassador for Space Machines.
Yes, he is. So last year we were awarded a grant by the Australian Space Agency, which was to develop deeper space ties with India. And as part of that, we're running a mission called Space Matri. And so what better way to promote that mission than have somebody like Steve, who's well regarded in both countries and a deep love for cricket in both places. So he's come on board, and he was at BSX Expo this year, and a fantastic way to find common ground and build deeper relationships in something other than cricket.
When you think about Australia and India, the diplomatic, the economic relationship beyond, do you think there's some sectors where Australia and India are quite well suited?
I think there are. Look, space is obviously one of them. I think we've had a long history of being involved in space with everything we did as part of the Apollo program, the Deep Space Network. So there's a deep love for all things space, and Indians have also emerged in the last 60 years as a space-faring nation and space power. So that's one, but I think climate, energy, everything we do in mining, consumer products. I think as you look at the last 20 years, you see how Australia's really benefited from the rise of Japan and Korea and China. I think the next wave is really India. And so I think we've got to be pretty eyes open that there's a lot of opportunity for Australian companies in the emerging economy that is India, and which in 10 years' time could be in the top 3.
And what advice would you give to an Australian company looking at India for the first time as a market?
Yeah, look, I think, coming from an Indian background, I think India is not transactional. India is relationship built. So you have to spend the time. But I think once you spend the time, the opportunity is great. I think people operate on trust. Trust is a big thing. So we found in our own journey that we have to make the commitment. And once you make the commitment, I think there's a lot of benefit to be had for Australian companies.
So what do we learn from our visit to India? Well, India can be intimidating. After all, it has 1.4 billion souls across 29 diverse states, and with 640 million people based in their massive teeming cities. But don't be intimidated. India has a parliamentary federal system with familiar institutions and legal framework. Many of its citizens are young, well-educated, English-speaking and tech-savvy. They are rightly proud of their nation's achievements, but also interested in the world and foreign cultures and influences. As a confident modern nation, India is not scared to take a look at trends beyond their shores. Here's just a few simple tips about doing business in India.
India is an amazing diverse place, so you have to pick your starting point based on your industry speciality. For instance, in finance or films, go to Mumbai, where Bollywood is. In government, go to New Delhi. If in space, IT or aviation, Bengalaru. For manufacturing, Chennai, and so on. For those interested in trading or investing in India, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is a key contact. It promotes international trade and investment through several organisations, including Invest India, which serves as a facilitator for investments and trade growth, working with foreign investors and providing support throughout their business lifecycle. Talk to the Australian High Commission in New Delhi or Consul Generals in places like Bengalaru and Chennai. And also, ask your state agency like Queensland. They can help you out if you find yourself on a sticky wicket. And enjoy the culture and do talk cricket. It's a great icebreaker. So catch a test match or the colour and excitement of an IPL game. If you can, it's an amazing experience.
Well, that's it for the India episode of The Airport Economist. I do hope you'll visit this amazing country when you get the opportunity. India has amazing charisma and you just want to keep coming back. See you on our next business adventure together somewhere around the great globe. I'm Tim Harcourt and I'm The Airport Economist.